calling all Kingdom women entrepreneurs, the vision builders, the boundary breakers, and the passion igniters who know they're called and anointed to impact positive change for the Kingdom through your business.
A business that honors and serves God. Welcome to Kingdom Women Entrepreneurs Podcast.
This is your host, Fideliz Cruz.
And I'm Annemarie Cross. Now, onto the show. So welcome back to another show, sis.
Welcome back, everyone.
This is a topic that I think each and every one of us can get stuck in at one time or another if we're not careful. And of course, we are talking about comparison and why we never should get stuck in the comparison trap. Sis, what have you learned and discovered over the years about comparison? You want to dive in and share?
Oh, comparisonitis. You know, we all go through this. I'm sure there's, you'd be lying if you said you've never gone through comparing yourself with anyone. We all go through this. I'm sure everyone can relate to today's topic. It really, when we do that, it sucks, right? Because it really can mess up the sense of self-worth and your value, and it saps away your joy, really. And that's what it is. That's what the Bible actually tells us. Comparison is the thief of joy, right? So it's important that we understand, again, going back to kingdom identity, who we are and who God has called us to be. But yeah, just starting with that, you know what, you're not alone. Firstly, if you're going through this, I feel it too. I'm sure Annemarie as well has gone through it, but I've experienced it over the years, especially as a business owner as well, because when I do my research and I look around, of course, if you're about to launch your business, you're going to look around, you're going to see, who's in the same industry, what are they doing? And it happens. So yeah, it does.
It does. And it's interesting, isn't it, that we can look at what others are doing, and when it doesn't become comparison from that, and this is where it's, be mindful that your admiration doesn't become envy. And that can often happen, like you're scrolling through Instagram and looking at pictures, and every now and again it's like that little twang. It's like, ooh. What is that? And if I think back to when I first started my business, this was years ago in the career industry, I was looking at other people, and this is where the admiration didn't become envy, but it was more comparing and not feeling good enough. And, that is where you really got to check in, isn't it? And say, well, what am I feeling? Does it feel empowering? Is it honoring the Lord with the gifts and talents that I have? And oftentimes it's not. When we admire or we envy and compare ourselves to other, their gifts and talents or where they are in their journey, we forget and negate where we are and who we are and who God's created us to be. We negate that, don't we?
Yeah. It feels like, for me, and I can just relate, going back to that, looking at, imagining yourself scrolling on Instagram, and then you see something and you're like, oh, that feeling. I feel like just being really aware of that firstly is so important, because it's just self-awareness as well, right? You just go, oh, there's something that I'm feeling here. It doesn't seem quite right. What is that? God, reveal that to me, and just share a little bit more about what that is. Let's unpack that feeling right now. Why am I going through that? But also there's a difference, I guess. I wanted to share that the envy part is more when you see someone doing something and then you've started to compare, but then the envy comes when it's sort of like, I don't want her to have that. That's the real envy, is when yeah, great, I'm happy that this person has got something and we can celebrate, and that's great. But when it's to the point that you're like, you know what, oh, she's got that, I don't feel like celebrating that.
Yes.
That is envy. So we've got to really be aware of this when we feel it, and when it comes up.
I think when we get stuck in that, as we both mentioned, you can negate and you can ignore where the Lord has placed you, your own gifts and talents. And I mean, if we were all the same and we all had the same gifts and talents, there would be a lot of things in the world that would not get done. So let's talk about what are some of the things that you have done to move through that and then be able to look at what other people are doing with admiration and an empowering way that you can say, well, that is amazing. You know, how blessed you are, in the same token, knowing how blessed you are yourself in where the Lord has you in that season.
Yeah, you know what? Let me just share really personally. For me, I've been through this a lot, a lot.
I think
And
we can get stuck there
you
daily,
know,
can't we? When we're I mean,
yeah,
this is something that we need to be mindful of. I think, again, I know our last show was talking about
yes,
renewing our minds daily. It's
yes,
one of the reasons, because the enemy can be there
exactly.
tapping on our shoulder. Look at what you're
But
not doing, or
look, yeah. So there was a point actually when I was early stages of my coaching business, what I did was when it starts to happen to me, when I start to see and it comes up for me on social media, I actually I don't unfollow, but I actually mute it, because I know that it's causing me to sin. You know, being envious is actually a sin, and feeling that it's not right, right? So I go, you know what, I'm going to mute it for a moment, and it's only for a season. And what it actually means is that God is doing a work in us when we're aware that this is happening, and when we're aware that, yeah, we've got these feelings. We can go back to God and go, God, teach me and tell me what that actually means. And what it is God is teaching us about our character, and it's going to be a process of again, renewing our mind, renewing the way that we think. And so for me, I don't block the person, I don't block whatever it is that I'm seeing. Sorry, I don't unfollow, but I would block it so that I don't see it often. And in the process, I ask the Lord to heal that part of me, or help me with that space. So that's what I do, firstly, so that it doesn't come up again and again and again, because it's a trigger. So let's get rid of that firstly, and then do the inner work. That's how I've been dealing with that
That's
so
beautiful.
far.
And as you share that is exactly what I have done too. And I'm sure others have done that as well, because otherwise it does trigger. I mean, what are the things that have triggered you, and remove those. And then, as you
Yes,
say, ask the Lord to heal you. And it's interesting, isn't it, that he really will work in you so that things don't trigger you as much. And let's face it, or maybe it's just me, I don't know. We're in business, and and when I talk about the word ambition, I don't mean it from a worldly point of view, but it means that you have goals, you have
that's right.
dreams, you've got, visions, you've got objectives that you want to achieve. And, sometimes I think as entrepreneurs, we can set the bar so high that it will be impossible, for us to achieve. And look, things, if we don't do things that are aligned and we ask the Lord for, I mean, that sets us on that's a whole other show on its own, I think, rushing forward and then going, oh, I forgot to pray about this, because we're just
Yeah.
on the go direct, and we just love what we do. And I think comparing and measuring is something that we can fall into, a trap that we can fall into if we are not careful. But I love what you said earlier about, when we compare and we're not really looking at, well, what is our kingdom identity? Some people may be struggling with this because they don't know their gifts. They don't know the talents and where the Lord has placed them. Can you share a little bit about your journey on how the Lord continued to show you some of the unique gifts and talents that you have in the amazing year? Share what you did, because this could be really helpful for others too, I'm sure.
Yeah, you know what? So within that journey, so I would block it, and then you know what I do, and this is something I teach with the Kingdom Woman Entrepreneurs Academy. We actually have this worksheet called the GSS Stock Take. So it's the Gifts, Strengths, and Strong Points worksheet, and we list out all the amazing things that we know and do. So your gifts, your talents, your abilities, even your credentials. even reviews from your clients, everything that you can pop on that list, you put it in there. And including experiences, including setbacks and how you overcome. So having a list of that, I feel like just solidifies for me. It's just like, you know what, actually, I have something to offer here. And it is unique to me and it is so personal to me. And then, you know, while having that list, just thanking God and praising God, because you know what, sometimes it's like, you know, we want something that we feel like we want something because we don't have it, but we need to look closer to home and go, actually, I do have plenty here. It's like, what's that saying, sis? It's like it's not green grass on the other side.
Oh, the
You think
grass is
that
always greener on the other side of the fence.
yeah. So it's like it's better over there, and that's so much better. But when we look closely, we actually have everything that we need, and God has actually equipped us for exactly what He's called us to do. So yeah, just really focusing on what we have rather than going, "Okay, I wish I had that."
Yeah.
Because that's
So
not our
true.
journey.
So
Yeah.
true. You know, when I
Yeah.
was back in the career industry, I had to, as part of certifications. So it's interesting. And you know, the Lord, we know the Lord uses everything for the good of those who love him. And so whilst maybe the driving factor was that I didn't feel good enough, so I needed to do that certification and that certification, that
Right.
certification. The Lord used that to build my self-awareness as I was learning and then being able to support others. The reason I share that is I had so many conversations with people who would come to me and the conversation would start, can you help me be more like this, that, and the other? And then I'd look at their assessment, like their behavioral assessment, and that assessment showed with their, you know, their character and again, their talents and so forth, their skills and experience, how they would behave in a certain environment. Now, how you behave in a certain environment is often shaped because of who you are. And so to be someone that you're not is going to be exhausting. And so when we looked at that, one of my objectives was to help them recognize their own unique gifts and talents and how that could be used in the workplace. And if we look at the context of that through who we are today, how many of us, even the style in which we show up, for instance, let me give you an example, how many courses or workshops and presentations I have sat through about time management. And a lot of that time, I don't know if you've ever felt this, sis, but it's like, it doesn't gel. I would spend more time trying to remember all of the things, you know, that I was taught to do this time management stuff. And then I recognized when I did this assessment, it was called the Colby A assessment, and it works on your cognitive. So where you really spring into action. And my highest is, and I've just gone a blank, but my highest is that I click into action when there is pressure. I do well under pressure. I love new projects, and I need a little bit of procrastination downtime because but it is planned
procrastination.
It's intensive. It's intentional. It's just strategic procrastination.
Wow. I think you're the same, Annemarie.
My brain is kind of formulating things so that when I'm on, I am on.
You're on.
Not Kickstarter. It's not that I can't remember what I'll think of it and I'll share it. But, you know, when you compare that to other people take a little bit more time. They do a little bit more research. And so I'm sharing that because sometimes you may be admiring something or why can't I be more like that? The Lord hasn't made you that way. Find out what it is that makes you click and go and do that and be, you know, that, because that's how you will work better.
Oh, wow. I love that. Oh my gosh, Anne, I think we're the same. When you said planned procrastination, I'm like, that is definitely me.
You need downtime.
Yeah.
You know, and another thing too that we're often told, you need to go networking. And I would think to myself, why do I feel so exhausted going to these networking events? Well, I am, believe it or not, an introvert, an extroverted introvert. I did MBI too as part of my certifications. And when we talk about extroversion and introversion, or the extrovert introvert, it has nothing to do with, you know, how how you meet people and shine. You may be a little bit more
Yeah.
shy or hesitant to speak to people, but being an introvert and extrovert, an introvert recoups their energy through being on their own, going out in the garden or walking. So very minimal interaction with others, whereas an extrovert recoups their energy through the interaction with others.
Yeah.
My mother was an extrovert through and through, which is why always after church, they would either go to other people's house for coffee, invite people over,
Yes.
morning service, evening service. She was just loved it. And when she went to a nursing home or a home on her own, and my father passed on and so forth, she really felt that it weighed her down. And so there's all of these factors that when we take into account, we need to know, how does the Lord make you? So you need to be on your own. And then other people will often say, oh, that person's a bit rude, doesn't sit with us at, in the lunch table or whatever. That's because if that person did, their energy would be drained. They need to recoup their energy by being on their own. And I'm just sharing this because sometimes we may look at others and think, why am I not like that?
And start to compare, right?
Do that way.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I love that, sis. It's so true. Like for me, I'm an extrovert. I feel like I'm an extrovert, like 80% extrovert, and then 20% sort of like I want to have my own me time as well. But, I just love that we work from our strengths. And when, as you said, when we know exactly, and that's why it's good to have that stock take of your gifts, your talents, even your personality, whether you're extrovert, introvert. When we know that and we're really secure in that, and run with that, I feel like that's your superpower. Like there's no one else like you. And that's so beautiful. That's so good how God created us so uniquely. But the beautiful thing about it, and we were just sharing this in the KW community, is that we're all very different, but we need each other. And every gift is significant and valued. Because if you are not here, Annemarie, like it's not complete. If I'm not here, it's not complete. We need each other. We have individual, unique talents and gifts, but together it's sort of like, complements. And that's what it is. It's not about competing. And when we're in the business world, we can be very competitive. Like we want to look at like the stats, the numbers. We want to make sure, hey, am I growing compared to? And it's sort of like, you have this thing where, what's the word? It's you're comparing yourself to another business that's similar to you. And when we do that, it's not, it's competitive. And I understand like healthy competition is good, but we got to be very careful that it doesn't turn into that, again, comparison, envy, negative side.
Oh, true. Let me share something else that I learned over the years as well. But as you talked about comparing, if we think about the person, that there is one person, there's a saying, the only person that you should be comparing yourself to is who you were yesterday.
Yes, love it.
And I think from a kingdom perspective too, the person that we want to become more and more like when we're comparing ourselves to really is Jesus, isn't
That's
it?
That's
so,
it.
That's someone that we can certainly measure ourselves to. But getting back to, and you're going to have to remind me because I've just completely forgotten my train. What was I going to talk about?
You're going to talk about I'm not quite sure.
Comparison. It'll come back to me.
It'll come back.
What were you talking about earlier about setting goals and
competition.
Competition, healthy competition. That's what I was going to share. One of the things that I learned years ago, this is through another one of the certifications that I did, was around mindset and around goal setting, was this: that as people who are driven and we are ambitious and we set high goals, when we don't achieve those goals, and that F word, the failure word, and I truly believe there's no such thing as failure, just feedback. What's the feedback? The growth. And we may tell ourselves that, but to be honest, we don't like it. Well, what can happen is, if you have had a failure or something didn't work out as you wanted, and you put your heart and soul, you worked so hard in that, what can happen is we can create what my the facilitator talked about, and we can see this from a biblical perspective too, where the enemy will really stir that festering up if we don't heal from it. It can cause trauma, and what they call goal trauma. And any time, and with a trauma, it is the emotion that we felt when we failed. And so what can often happen is we don't heal from that. We don't take the learnings from that, and it remains disempowering. What can often happen is we play small, or we don't really set goals at all because we don't want to set ourselves up to experience that negative feeling of, well, what if I fail again? But as we know, the Lord says to us, do not look to the past all of the time, and if we're not learning and doing things differently. So be mindful of that. There may be people who have not just got stuck in the comparison trap, but they've tried to achieve things, but now there is some trauma there, goal trauma, or even financial trauma that can keep them stuck as well if they don't heal from that.
Oh, Annemarie, can I share a little story?
Sure.
Hopefully this will help whoever's listening now as well, because talking about trauma, I don't actually know if the word is trauma, but you know what? Because again, that trigger, when I see something and I'm like, oh, I wish I had that, it's the comparisonitis. I had to do some research as to why I was like this. And then I did this thing called, what's it called? I worked with a coach, and she did this timeline therapy. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Yes.
It was the first time I've heard of it, and I was just really open to, I really need help with this. And you know what? It took me back to this time when I was about, I think, 6 or 7 years old. And I just remembered, that something happened to me at that time that caused me to be like this. And here's what happened. So as I was growing up in kindy year 1, I was always first honor. In the Philippines, they have this thing where they give you like a medal, a gold medal, if you're first. Every end of the year, it's a massive thing, like, because your parents will come up and give you the awards. And I was always first in class, like no fail, and first in English. And I just loved it, right? I'm very academic in that sense. And then there was this one point that I really was like, okay, cool. I know I've got this. There was 2 of us that were picked to do a recite a poem or recite something, a more like not international way, but more on like in the community, to represent the school. There were 2 of us, and we were competing for this spot. And because I was so sure of myself, I was always first. I was like, I'm not going to study this. I'm not going to do anything. And you know what happened? I was not picked, of course, because I wasn't, I didn't give it 100%. And so another girl was able to do that, and I was so disappointed. And it took me back to this point where I saw her at the play area, and she was, it was just after the event. And I said, how did it go? Obviously all in my home language. And she was just like, it was amazing. You missed out. This is like kind of what she said to me, because I didn't get in, she did. And then, you know what, that caused me, I don't know if it's a trauma, I don't know if that's the word, but that was actually, I feel like, why I'm like this in a certain way, where I'm always wanting to achieve things and do things, because I never want to feel like that again.
I know. And actually, in part of the training I did, I mean, I think of a certification, I've probably done it, and I did that timeline therapy as well. And this is what happens is, in our life, we can have certain experiences. They're just experiences, but then one experience happen, and it's so significant, it anchors and ties all of those, if you can give an example, all of those experiences together, so that it exacerbates all of them, but it will often track back to that, to that event. The beautiful thing is, and we know through the power of the Holy Spirit, and a lot of these courses, what they didn't realize is that we have the Lord, we have the supernatural healings that is in that. But sometimes, we need to be aware of what that is. And so
that's right.
Obviously now, sis, you're a lot older, a lot wiser, experiences and things that you have done. and the confirmation continuously of the Lord speaking into your life, you are a different person to who you were.
That's right.
And have more resources now than who you were the younger you. And so what we can often do is go back and give those resources to that younger you. And so all of that then breaks all of those the feelings, the negative feelings, because anytime we are in a situation that is similar to a previous event, we will just won't do it, and as you said, it may be that we continue to jeopardize where we're at because we don't do the things. We may not do this, we may not do that. Just these little things all add up to a point where we prove the belief that hey, I can't achieve this, but actually you can. You just powerful stuff, isn't it?
Exactly. That's why it's so good to go and ask yourself, why am I like this? Like, what brought this on? Because that helped me understand more about why I feel those triggers, why that happens to me, and that's so helpful. It's part of that process again of healing from that. And then now I'm much better with, I don't do so much comparison anymore, because I'm like, Lord, I know exactly what my journey is. And I just want to share this verse in Galatians 6, 4-5. It goes like this: pay careful attention to your own work, for then you will get the satisfaction of a job well done, and you won't need to compare yourself to anyone else, for we are each responsible for our own conduct. And that's in Galatians. So I love that, because, comparison could be really, it's really a distraction. It's the enemy trying to distract you from your own calling, because we're thinking of everyone else and what they're doing. But instead of using that energy for that, we can use the energy to work on our own stuff.
Yes. So true. Yeah. So true. I love that verse. Thank you for sharing that. And it's a great way to end the show. And when we realize that the comparison, but also even what other people are doing, and I know that we shared or how they're doing that, how they're approaching that, very individually, the Lord may have given them away. And I'll give you an example. Back to one of the podcast interviews we did, we shared who we were or what our brand archetypes were. And you bring, this beautiful romantic archetype, and you can see that in your graphics and who you are, and just beautiful romantic, and that and all of the things that comes with it. Whereas mine's more the ruler. And so it's very different how we bring that together. And as you said earlier, which I think is such a wonderful reminder, we are all different, but together we make up that whole, don't we? Just like we said, that the church is part of a body. If we only had hands, or only had arms, or only had, sometimes we all think that we have voices, but I tell you what, we need the people behind the scenes. We need the people who are there diligently, daily doing those things. Wherever the Lord has placed you in whatever season, together we all can bring God's kingdom here on earth.
Amen. So true.
Thank you for sharing that verse. I think that's a great way to end the show.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for listening. We hope you've been encouraged by today's message. If you'd like to find out more about how you can work with a Christian business coach and to grow your business and be part of our free KWE community, go to kingdomwomenopentrepreneurs.com.
And if you'd like to learn more about how to start a Kingdom Focus podcast so you can build your visibility and impact in a much bigger way, go to podcastingwithpurpose.com/Kingdom Podcast. And we would love you to leave some feedback over on our Apple Podcast channel. We'd really appreciate it.